Well, I want to thank you so
Thank
very
you.
much, Alphonse Abongo Ashu, for being there, for updating us on the situation in Douala. And it's pitiful that some of the houses will have to be destroyed. And at the same time, that people are still struggling to build in those forbidden places. But we hope the government, city authorities are going to do something. We are continuing now with the Global Week for Action on Non-Communicable Diseases, which is here already. And partners are saying it is enough. Now, it is time to act on NCDs. And how will you act on NCDs? We are with us Dr. Ngek, who is a general practitioner and Divine Budzi Monitoring and Evaluation Officer, NCD Prevention and Control Program. They should be working under the ministry of, under the Cameroon Baptist Convention. You're welcome, sirs.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having me.
It's nice to have you here. I will start with you, Dr. Ngek. What are NCDs?
Thank you very much, Mr. Muki, for that question. So NCDs refers to a group of diseases that are non-communicable. Just like the name calls them, they are not transmissible, so they do not communicate. All right?
What do you mean by diseases communicating?
Disease communicating means that they can move from one person to the other. So communication is like you and I were talking, so you're getting me, so it's moving from me to myself, to you, right? So that's communication. So in the case, or in medicine, we refer to communicable diseases as diseases that can move from myself to you, just like information moves from you to the whole world from CRTV.
Interesting. Can we have examples of these non-communicable diseases?
Great. So non-communicable diseases are broken down into classes, okay? So we have the first class, which is called cardiovascular diseases, and cardiovascular diseases refers to diseases like hypertension, like stroke, okay? So those are diseases which we refer to as cardiovascular diseases. The next group is what we refer to as diabetes. All right, so diabetes is a group of diseases which are manifested by raised blood sugar, and this category of diseases are subclassified into type 1, type 2, and other syndromes. So we also have a third group which is referred to as chronic respiratory diseases. That means persons who have diseases like asthma. I think you must have heard of persons talking about asthma.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
We also have some other complex words like chronic bronchitis, and we have emphysema. Those are other groups of respiratory diseases. Now, the next class of diseases is what we refer to as cancers. Okay, so many people don't know that cancers are non-communicable diseases, but yeah, cancers are a group of non-communicable diseases. So examples of cancers are breast cancer, colon cancer, and so those are diseases in our time. And the last group is what we refer to as mental health disorders. Mental health disorders, like we see persons who are schizophrenic, the person we see them on the streets, they are mad. So those are a group of non-communicable diseases. So if you see these examples of diseases, I can't say because you're mad, I'll be mad, okay? Or because you're mad,
if I touch you,
you'll become mad. So that's why we call them non-communicable diseases.
Now, if there is a global week for action on non-communicable diseases, Mr. Divine Budzi, it means it is a serious problem in Cameroon. What is the magnitude of the problem in our country, Cameroon?
Thank you so much, Edwin. The problem in Cameroon is quite enormous compared to the global world. So we have about 35% of the national population affected by NCDs, and we discover that when it's increasing with number, it's increasing as time goes on, and so we need to address it. We need to seriously address it.
35% of Cameroonians.
Yeah.
And what is responsible for this? Is it because people are changing the way they live? What accounts for all of this?
Yeah, we have 5 major risk factors of non-communicable diseases. We have physical inactivity, we have tobacco use, we have alcohol misuse, we have that's air pollution, and then the last one is a unhealthy diet. And like Dr. Sintieh talked, those risk factors can eventually cause you to have NCDs if you are not careful.
I'd like you to break it down so that the man watching down should understand. When you say unhealthy eating habits or eating habits, what do you mean? Are people changing what they used to eat and embracing new forms of or new ways of eating?
Okay, Edwin, it's not that what we have happening is a certain effect we call urbanization. You know, as we have a lot of changes coming because we see somebody eating hamburger and we think it's the good life. We take like 2-3 hamburgers and we get to eat it, and when we eat a lot of junk food, as they call it, it tends to increase some of this risk for us to develop these non-communicable diseases.
That's as far as food is concerned. You spoke about, Dr. Ngek, you spoke about alcohol misuse. I want to use the word you use.
Yeah, alcohol misuse.
And then you spoke about cigarettes.
Yeah,
what?
exactly. Tobacco use.
Tobacco use, yeah.
Yes, I was very careful with the name. Tobacco use and alcohol misuse.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
All right. So the first thing, let's talk about alcohol first. So when we refer to alcohol misuse, it means taking more than the recommended grams or volume. Let me use volume because that's what we will understand in the quarters of alcohol that is recommended per week. Okay. So in healthcare, we have a recommended unit of alcohol that somebody can take, that if that person is living a healthy life. Okay. So for males, for instance, it's recommended that they have 20 units of alcohol per week.
If you are to, well, in terms of bottles
that's why I'm coming to that. So that is like, let's take for instance a standard beer. Okay, a standard beer. So a standard beer in US is a standard beer, but in Cameroon it's difficult to say what the standard beer is. But so with working in Cameroon, we'll be able to adapt. Like, okay, if you're taking tertiary export, for instance, which contains approximately 6.5% of alcohol per volume in 650 cc's. So when we do that bottle is 650 cc's. So when we look at that, we see that someone who is actively drinking beer manufactured by brasseries in Cameroon will take maximum 2 bottles a week.
In a week?
Yeah, maximum. So for females, it's 1 bottle. So it's half that volume. So now, when we talk about alcohol misuse, is when you go to those excesses, because we know that Cameroonian youths and everybody in the active population, in a sitting, if they are decent, they'll drink 2. If they are not decent,
they'll drink 2 per day.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if they are not decent, we see tables. If you just go to any snack now, you see tables with 10 bottles.
Too bad.
Too bad. So
let's move now to the tobacco issue.
Tobacco issue, it's generally we shouldn't smoke. It's not recommended anywhere. All right. Now, one of the strongest risk factors outside genetics, outside the fact that maybe we are black, to lead you to a particular group of non-communicable diseases is smoking. That group is cancers. Okay. For pulmonary cancers, as lung cancer, smoking is one of its strongest non-modifiable risk factors. Because we have what we call non-modifiable risk factors, which is by virtue of your age, by virtue of your ethnicity. For instance, those of us who are black, we are generally prone to have cancers, okay, compared to the Caucasians, to the whites. All right. So smoking, it's not recommended, and even taking a cigarette a day, it's not recommended, and that damages your lungs. And in the long run, you are prone to having severe forms of pulmonary cancers, that is lung cancers, and it's actually killing. It's actually the second leading cause of cancer-related death. So it's not something that we should play around. And you see chronic smokers coming to the hospitals every day. Doctor, I'm coughing. The cough is not productive. At times when I cough, it comes out with blood. When it gets to the bloody stage, it's very advanced. So at times I'll advise those listening to me, if you have a parent or friend with smoking, tell the person to cease smoking. Generally, we know that it's difficult because it's addictive. The more you smoke, you tend to smoke more. And so we actually have an entire therapy which you take
to stop smoking. I want to take us back a bit to talk about the drinking aspect of it. You've spoken about what people who smoke are exposed to, like the cancers. What about those who drink?
Those who drink, it's enormous, right? Now, let's start with it. Now, alcohol in its essence, it's broken down in the body by the liver, all right? So the liver is like the isacam of the body, okay? So alcohol, it's majorly hepatotoxic, so it affects the liver. So we have a growing population of persons who come with hepatic failure, that's liver failure, from chronic alcohol smoking, from chronic alcohol intake. So that's what we call it, alcohol-associated liver disease. And the bad thing about it is that the only cure to liver failure is a liver transplant. And
it means you buy a new liver?
Yeah, it means you buy a new liver. And even in the world, it's in Africa, we rarely do it. Okay, so we have many people, you see young males with a pot belly, and they tell you that they are draining water from their abdomen. Those are overt signs that you know that the person has a liver failure. Now, the alcohol does not only affect the liver, it affects every organ system from the brain itself. So with it being broken down, it's converted to metabolites that will impair the response of our nervous systems. And that leads us to a pseudo-elated state. You know, when you take alcohol, you feel happy. No, that is a pseudo-elated state. So you feel that you're energetic, but in the real sense, in the long run, you're damaging your nervous system. And so every organ system, I can actually give a lecture on the whole body on that.
And the take-home message is alcohol is not good.
The take-home message is that alcohol is not good.
Divine, why is the CBC, where two of you work, engaged with this week of action against non-communicable diseases?
Thank you, Edwin. Actually, this week of action, this is the third. We've had the first, it started 2 years ago by the global NCD, the Global NCD Alliance, and what they wanted to do is they wanted to highlight the burden of NCDs. If you look at it, 70% of global deaths are due to NCDs. And so they had to highlight that, and then they move out on advocacy actions, different activities to pass the message across that NCDs are silent killers. They develop slowly, but yet they kill. And so the CBC Health Services in 2016 started a non-communicable disease prevention and control program, even though they had been doing a lot of work on NCDs earlier than then. But from there, they started a programmatic approach, and from there, they have gone into campaigns on non-communicable diseases, passing across the message that non-communicable diseases are ravaging the community.
And when people have these cancers, how do you treat them? I mean, it's not easy, because I hear they do what they call palliative care. They assist you to die. Is that what it means?
That is
But they cannot cure you. They're just giving you, I don't know, to reduce the pain.
Actually, Edwin, it's quite painful when it gets to that stage. But actually, we believe that non-communicable diseases are preventable. So we start from prevention, sensitization, and when we sensitize people, take for example a child. A child is growing, you may not know he's growing with an NCD, and you need to advise the child on the diets the child will take, on what the child, on physical activity, because if you look actually at the adolescent stage, that is where most of the NCDs rather develop, and then later on they would emerge maybe in the older part of life, and then you are like, okay, is this when it developed? But when it developed earlier than that time.
Now, doctor, what is the age group? I mean, those who are affected the most, are they young people, middle-aged people, or old people?
That classification that you've given varies from country to country. I'll go with the age group. Okay?
Let's come back to our country.
Yes, so the most affected age gap with NCDs is between the age 30 and 69. And you see that is actually the active working population of every economy. So that is how serious these NCDs are. And it's worth noting that from the World Health Organization statistics in 2018, 15 million global deaths aged between 30 to 69 were from NCDs. And 85% of those deaths occurred in low and medium income countries like ourselves, Cameroon. So that means if we count all low, middle, and low countries, if we count 10 persons, 8 out of those 10 died from NCDs.
Let's move to what some of the slogans you have. Partners say it is enough. What is enough? And that's the slogan you have when you say partners say it's enough. What is enough?
It's enough for us to be silent about the silent pandemic. All right. So NCDs has been a silent pandemic since time immemorial. since the onset of so-called urbanization and modernization and whatsoever, life is gradually becoming sedentary. And so this year, we are saying it's enough. It's time for us to take action. It's time for us to act on NCDs. It's time for everybody to be accountable for NCDs.
Divine, why is it time to act now?
The time
Is it because there's a particular specific reason you're asking people to act right now? You didn't ask them to act yesterday.
Thank you, Edwin. The time to act is now, because if the NCDs have to start developing now, they would express themselves later. So if you don't act now, it will express itself later. So act now so that you'll be free from NCDs later.
And how should people act?
We like for the CBC Health Services, we have a number of youths we have been talking with, and we had an advocacy program for young advocates against NCD, that's for NCD prevention. And what we did with them was that we sensitized them on what NCDs are, how they kill, how to prevent it, how to even pass across messages in the community. And if you notice, they have been moving around and passing across the message of NCDs, that NCDs kill. And so we discovered that for the past 2 years, even the Global NCD Alliance has been congratulating the CBCHS because the young advocates have been on social media and passing across even the message there. And it's really been a wonderful one.
Now, Doctor, let's start by looking at what to be done now to prevent these people from being affected by these non-communicable diseases. So what should people be doing?
All right. So the aim of the World Health Organization and all health bodies, it's that we should reduce the premature deaths from NCDs by 25% come the year 2025. So it's a slogan called 25 by 25. All right. So now, what are the things that are being proposed that could be done by us, first of all, on an individual basis? So I'll go with respect to individual basis health facilities, and then we'll look at the state.
You have 2 minutes. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you, sir. So 2 minutes. Okay. So now, first thing, as a young-looking man like you, sir, we encourage that you have.
And you too.
Thank you, sir. So I encourage you to have at least an hour walk 3 times a week. So you need to be healthy. All right. So you might decide today that when going home, you walk home, you'll not take your car, and tomorrow while coming back, you walk to work, all right? So it takes you can get up an hour and make it to the studio, right? So that's what we encourage every citizen to do. And if you can't do that, you should find out time in your busy schedule to do at least 30 minutes of aerobic exercise. What does that mean? Push-ups, jogging, and so on and so forth. Now, you should eat a healthy diet. A healthy diet means your plate should have at least 1 or 2 servings of fruits, okay? Should not be made up with trans fats. Trans fat means fat that has been fried in simple ways. So commonly now we fry everything in Africa. In those days, our parents would just mix the palm oil and make our foods were so natural. But now it's actually growing. Next thing is we need to drink water. All right, at least 2 to 3 liters of water a day. That's what you can do on a personal basis.
2 to 3 liters of water
a day. Yeah. So I think you need to take that base. Many people don't do that. So actually, we encourage you to have a water bottle. We used to have that in primary school, but the habit has died down. But that's what we need to encourage now. And for all health facilities, we encourage that they should copy what the Cameroon Baptist Convention Health Services is doing. We have a unit called Know Your Numbers, and you can come there on a 3-monthly basis and know your numbers, meaning we check your blood pressure, we check your blood sugar, we check your lipid profile. Those are...
How much is that? How much does that cost?
It's just 300 francs.
To do all of this taking?
Yes, it's just 300 francs.
I'm sure people will be coming. Where should they come? Tomorrow? They will start rushing.
If Baptist Hospital is open.
Any Baptist hospital.
Any Baptist hospital.
Now, Divine, what should people be doing and avoiding?
Yeah, to queue up from where he ended, we are encouraging that people with, you know, in the COVID-19 pandemic era, you can start your physical activity right at home. You create your space, and then you do even jogging, even with the jump rope at home, and it will, you could do that, and you could even do counts. We have phones now, with the Android phones now, you could do your steps, you could count your steps on your phone, as you move, and they call that the pedometer. You have it in your phone, and you see it will be counting your steps. And you could also avoid, like what we said, you avoid a lot of tobacco. Even tobacco, if you come around someone who is smoking, just give way. You could even tell the person that smoking kills, let the person just shift a bit so that it doesn't affect you too. And you could also avoid heavy imbibition of alcohol. If you take it in controlled measures, you'll live a healthy life.
Doctor, you're so young. Cameroon's got talents. The way you spoke, I was surprised. I said, wow, where is this man coming from? Where were you trained?
I was trained from the best university in Cameroon, University of Where.
Ah, the place to be.
Yeah.
That's nice to hear. You too. I'm sure you are the spokesperson for this thing, because you go around really educating people and have the words to do that. I want to thank you very much, gentlemen, for coming. I want to thank especially Professor T. Pius, he's in charge of CBC Health Services, if I'm not mistaken, who made it possible for you to be here, and other officials of the CBC Church that have been very much present in this program. So, 30 seconds, Doctor. How is it going to end? The week is just midway now. What is happening in the next days?
So we have today is Wednesday. Thursday we'll have a talk for cancers to patients who are living with cancers, and also persons who have people living with cancers. So it's health education. We'll do that in the health facilities and in churches that we've already programmed. And also the week is open for everybody to visit our Know Your Numbers unit so that they could also get to know their numbers. It's actually the only time that we are prioritizing them.
Thank you so very much for coming. Now it is getting to 7 o'clock in the only time. We shall be receiving here in the studio Nadia Amana to give us news, what has made news in Cameroon, in Africa, and in the world. Just to remind you, if you're just getting in touch with us now, that we're talking here about non-communicable diseases, because the Global Week for Action on Non-Communicable Diseases is already here, and partners like the Cameroon Baptist Convention are saying it is enough. Now it's time to act on NCDs. How would you act? What should you do? That's what we got from Dr. Ngek, Sintieh, who is general practitioner and works with the Cameroon Baptist Convention. And we also had the Divine Budzi, who is a monitoring and evaluation officer for NCD Prevention and Control Program.